Welcome everyone. Today we are gonna learn about lathe simulation using lathe simulator application. In this application we can learn about lathe operation in virtual mode, but the condition is likely the real one. But I remind you, in the real lathe operation, it may be dangerous stuff to do. So I suggest hardly for you to wear proper personal protective equipment like safety goggle, apron, and wear shoes. This application is quite simple and can be easily downloaded through Google Play Store for Android. Just simply type Lathe Simulator and there will be appeared several applications. There are two similar applications, but choose the free one. This app is freely and user-friendly. Okay, now we will get back into the application again. You will see the lathe machine pictures, which is in 3D, and so many controlling tools to run it. Let's take a look on the right side. You will see the application bar contain the application tools. The upper button is the X button with the red color. That is the button to exit the application. Below that is the information about lathe machine parts, and I suggest you to see it first before start the operation. Below that is the button to save your works after you're done, if you want to save your file. You can also start new project and open the existing project. Now let's take a look to the upper left corner of the screen there. The first button, we have the copyrights info. This button will show you the copyrights about this application. And besides that is the button to mute and unmute the sound. Besides this button, it is the button for camera position. We have two different angles for camera 1 and camera 2. To do freely operations, let's put on the camera 2. Besides that, which is highlighted in the green color, is the two-dimensional camera movement. You can freely move the camera view using your finger touch in your phone touchscreen. Besides that is the 3D rotation button. You can simply use this to rotate the view three-dimensionally. Besides that is the zoom in and zoom out button. This is also the same. You can easily zoom in and zoom out the view by using your finger touch in the screen and slide. Below this button is the button to change the language from Russian to English. And besides this button is the button to change the units from metric to British. In this operation we will use metric 1. Okay, now let's take a look to the lathe machine headstock. We have 4 levers of spindle right here to do the operation in the spindle. In the right one, we have a spindle speed range lever that can change the spindle speed range. As you see in the left lever, the spindle speed range is changed from one to another. And the left lever 1 is the lever to change the spindle speed itself. Okay. Now we look onto our workpiece, assuming that our workpiece material is mild steel. And let's go to the right bar again. Below the saving button, we can see workpiece setting. We can simply adjust the workpiece length or diameter and the offset distance from the chuck. Okay. Now assuming that our dimension for the workpiece is this. So according to the reference, we will use the carbide cutting tool. And our workpiece is mild steel. According to this table, our workpiece cutting speed is around 90 to 135 meters per minute. Assuming we'll take the lower one, we will use 90 meters per minute. And according to the cutting speed formula, we can determine the spindle speed. If we calculate using this formula, then we will find that our spindle speed is around 700 RPM. Okay. Now we go back to the headstock lever in the application. And we change the spindle speed range using this lever until we can see 700 RPM on the left lever. Okay. In here we can see that there is no 700 RPM. There is options between 630. There are only two options actually, 630 and 800 RPM. In this case, we will choose the lower one, 630 RPM, because if we choose the high one, we're afraid that in the real condition, our cutting tools will face to face with wear. So to save this, we will use the lower one, 630 RPM. Okay, and don't change these two middle levers. Let it be like that. Okay, now we go to the bottom. We have two levers right here. Right. The right lever is the lever to change the cutting tool feet. This one. Okay. This one is the lever to change the cutting tool feet. And as you can see, when I change the lever, you can see the feed information on the screen exactly below the camera settings changes. Okay, now we will use the 0.520 millimeters per revolution for longitudinal feed and 0.260 millimeters per revolution for transversal movement. Okay, and for the left lever, let it be on the feed gears 42 to 50. Because we will do feed operations for facing and turning, not treating. Alright. Now let's take a look to the tool pose. The tool pose position is above the carriage. Okay. Now see the right bar again. We click the cutting tool button below the workpiece dimension button. We can choose various of cutting tools, but we only have 4 slots in the tool kit. And some cutting tools perhaps locked. because it is a free application, but it's okay. We will choose the simply cutting tool, just like number 5. When we choose it, just simply touch it and hold it and slide it to the cool kit. So it is installed properly into the tool post. As we can see, this cutting tool has 3 different arrows directions. The arrow directions indicates this cutting tool can be used for that direction only in the purpose. In this cutting tool, meaning that this cutting tool can be used for turning and facing operations as well. Okay. Now we choose another cutting tool, just like the cutting tool number 43 for grooving operations with 3mm slot. Simply select it, touch it, and slide and put it into the toolkit. After it's all installed to the tool post, like this, we can simply change the installed cutting tool by finger touching to the tool post lever, like this. If we want to use the number 5 cutting tool, we just simply put this cutting tool in this position. If we want to do grooving operations, we just simply change using groove cutting tool like this. It's very simple. Now let's take a look to the carriage below the tool post. Alright. In here we have 2 buttons, as you can see, the black button and the red button. The black button is used to turn on the machine, and the red one is to turn off the machine. Now simply turn on the machine by push the black button. After you hear the sound, it's meaning that the machine is on and it's all ready to do the operation. Don't change the other levers in the carriage. Now we see on the lower left corner of the screen, we have 4 buttons. First upper button is to turn on the spindle counterclockwise. Let's set the camera into the spindle, like here. Alright. Now watch the spindle. The first upper button in the lower left corner is the spindle button for counterclockwise. Watch this. Now the spindle is rotate into counterclockwise position. And to put it off, just simply push the button opposite it in the below. And the lower button is to turn on the spindle clockwise. To turn it off, just simply push the opposite button. That's very simple. Okay. Now beside this button is the cleaning basket on the below of the lathe machine to clean all of the chips. And beside that is the button to turn on the cooling fluid flow. Okay. Now let's take a look to the upper right corner of the screen. As you can see, we have 6 buttons right there, but only 5 buttons activated. First button that I pushed, and it is highlighted in the green color, is the angle setting for the tool post you see. Okay. You can simply adjust the tool post angle as you desire. Okay. The second button is the button for the tool post movement of the hand wheel. Let's see. The sound of the machine is disturbing. Now turn it up first. Okay. Alright. I repeat again. The second button is the tool post movement hand wheel. When you activate it, you will see the hand wheel measurement on the upper left side of the screen, exactly below the camera settings. You can also simply touch the measurement and slide it up and down, and you can see the tool post hand wheel is rotated and the tool post is moving forward or moving backward. Okay. Normally, we will use this hand wheel to do the chamfering operations combined with the angle setting of the tool post. Alright, now we go to the third button. This button is for moving the tailstock hand wheel. This is the tailstock. Okay, as you can see, when I activate this, the hand wheel measurement showed up below the hand wheel buttons. So the tailstock drill bit can move forward or backward when I slide the measurement. As you can see, the hand wheel of the tailstock is rotated. Okay. The fourth button is the tool post hand wheel to move the tool post into transversal movement, usually used to do phasing operations. Let's see to the tool post. The principle is also the same with the other hand wheels. You simply touch the measurement and move it right or left. A right slide of hand wheel is to move tool post forward. Left slide is to move tool post backward in the transversal movement. Okay. The fifth button is to move the carriage hand wheel to do the longitudinal movement, and the principle is also the same. If you touch the measurement, the slide, let's take a look at the carriage very closely. Okay. If you touch the measurement and slide it to the right, you can move carriage away from the workpiece. And the left slide is to move the carriage approaching the workpiece. It is usually used to do turning operations. Okay. Now let's take a look to the lower right corner of the screen. You can see 6 buttons. There are 2 thumbs pictures buttons and 4 arrows buttons up and down, right and left. All of these buttons are to do automatic movement of longitudinal carriage movement and transversal tool post movement. I'll show you how to use it. First, we turn on the machine, and then we turn on the spindle rotation. Now, when the thumbs up button is on, it indicates the slow motion when you activate it. For example, you want to move the carriage into the left approaching the workpiece, you should push this button. Then the carriage will move approaching the workpiece. To turn it off, just simply push the opposite arrow button. And it is the same with this button. Okay, that is for the slow motion of longitudinal movement. Now, this is for the transversal movement. The principle is also the same. When you push this arrow button, the tool post will move forward into the transversal movement. And to turn it off, just simply push the opposite button. That is for the slow motion of the transversal movement. Now for the thumbs down button, the function of this button is to move the carriage and the tool post rapidly. Actually, this rapid movement is only suggested when you approaching the workpiece only, not to do the operations, because the movement is too rapid. So it will damage the cutting tool as well with the workpiece. Okay. All right. Now our preparations for the lathe operation is enough. Okay, we must do these preparations before we go to the next step of the lathe operations, to do turning or facing, or to do other operations like grooving or threading. This preparation is very important in order to prepare your works and to make your next operations easily to do. Now we can see to the next video to learn how to do the facing operations, turning operations, and grooving operations. That's it for today.